Back on the bridge, Spock relays Cadet Uhura's report that all their data buoys have been retrieved, thus completing their survey of the nebula. The captain considers it a nice change of pace.
No battles, no chaos, just scanning a nebula and focusing on the science.
Yeah. Just,
as you're wont to say.
They're just doing the job, not fighting pirates, not getting chased down by Gorn. Ortegas plots the course that Pike asked for, and she asks him if he's going to say the thing, which he does say. Hit it.
Hit it.
Spock's sensors have detected a minor synchrotron flux from the nebula, and he speculates it has affected their warp capabilities, or, he adds, Pike did indeed jinx it. Yeah, because, Spock and his superstitions.
There is some good lines in this. I will not say this episode is like a full bust. You should watch it at least once.
Oh, you should see it just to get the full sense of the season. If you don't like it, you don't have to see it again. Well, that's kind of the beauty of it.
Oh, for sure. I watched it even though the whole time I was like, God, Lee, I just want to turn this off right now.
Yep, and you texted me about every 7 minutes with that sentiment. So they're trying to kick around a plan to get them out of this jinxed nebula thing. And Spock comes up with a fancy maneuver, but as they try it, poor Erica Ortegas eats the dirt. She gets knocked right out of her seat and hits her head. Pike calls for M'Benga to come to the bridge for a medical emergency. M'Benga answers the call, heads up through the turbolift, kind of looks all burnt up. As he reaches the bridge, he finds it covered in banners and vines and curtains and all sorts of fancy stuff. And all the people on the bridge are now dressed in fancy clothes, as is M'Benga. Pike notices him and roughly pushes his way through the crowd before putting on a smile. And they all call him the king and bow before M'Benga. And M'Benga has just one thing to say. What the hell?
Now, look, man. This is not, as I've said already, I don't know if I've said this on episode or offline between the two of us, but this episode fits nicely, I feel like nicely, in Next Generation canon.
Oh, it feels very much like a Next Gen episode to me.
Yeah, it does not feel like a TOS episode. It feels like something slap dab in the middle of Next Generation.
Because if TOS did this, there'd be some heavy-handed moral with it. This is more just like there's something that's happening, and now here's this wacky thing that's going on because of it.
Yeah.
like Q popping along and doing stuff or whatever,
I would have enjoyed the Q popping up in here, but it didn't happen.
Nope, it did not.
I'm talking stuff about this episode like I really hated it, but in the scope of Strange New Worlds, this episode for me ranks kind of at the bottom, but it's not bad.
No, like I said, I didn't like it, but I don't know that I would rank it a bad episode. It's just not my thing, at all. And M'Benga says he was called up to attend Ortegas, but everybody looks at him kind of baffled, like, who's Ortegas? Pike points out that he must mean Sir Adia. And she steps forward. The doctor asks if this is some kind of joke. Pike, being on top of it, it's like, you want a joke? I'll get the jester. And M'Benga's like, no, because nobody likes jesters. Pike, who is apparently was a Lord Roth or something Roth, suggests that his king should sit, and that's when we discover that the Enterprise's captain's chair is now the king's seat, the king's throne, so to speak. We get the sense that Ortegas, as her character Adia, does not like Pike's character Ralph. Basically calls him a apple polisher. And that he should probably be put in the kitchen. And M'Benga consults the ship's computer, the Oracle as the others call it, seeing if something somehow has affected the crew. He then thinks back to the chemical explosion in sickbay, and perhaps the exposure to 3QND was causing hallucinations. So he heads to return to sickbay, and Ralph, who is, Pike is a character Ralph now, prepares to follow before asking where this bay was and if he had to commandeer a ship. And they will bring up the bad omen of the dreadful fog that they saw Adia adds her belief that it was a curse sent by Queen Nev, considering the sorcery a coward's weapon. Ortegas is really stabby this episode.
Oh, I'm all about it, though.
Yeah. No, I'm for it.
There was that one episode where Pike basically told her to calm down.
Yeah.
So the fact that she's like all the way out here, I appreciate it.
Yeah. And Binga heads to the Turbolift, saying that he has to obtain a magical device. And he's talking about his tricorder and asks nobody to go with him. And Binga walks the familiar yet altered corridor of the ship, which are strewn with vines and fireflies and all sorts of things like that. Everyone he passes bows or curtsies because he's the king.
Good to be king, baby.
His tricorder results are normal, but everyone has elevated dopamine levels. He runs the tricorder over Nurse Chapel, who is now like some kind of a healer or some kind of character.
Yeah, that's what I took it as.
Yeah, and sees that her dopamine levels are elevated as well.
No.
And now, and look, I'm really rushing through this, by the way, people, so just bear with me. So La'an, now as Thalia, is extremely glad to see him, telling him that Queen Nev and her Crimson Guard have invaded her kingdom, searching for the Mercury Stone. And that she barely escaped with her life, and not to mention her little dog, too.